Once one of the biggest sitcoms in ABC's TGIF lineup, Step by Step seemed like the picture of warmth, laughter, and the perfect blended family. But behind those polished smiles, life did not stay nearly as peaceful as it looked. Brandon Call was once a teen favorite, then a shooting nearly pushed him into a silent disappearance from Hollywood. Stacey Keenan did not just grow up, she walked away from sitcom fame entirely and resurfaced in a courtroom. So what really happened after the laughter faded? Who disappeared? Who reinvented themselves? And who changed so much that time almost rewrote their entire story? Let's take a look back at the cast of Step by Step and see how those legends have aged, then and now. Number 1. Patrick Duffy, Grace After Loss and Fame. By the time Patrick Duffy came to Step by Step, he was already far from an unfamiliar face. Audiences knew him from Dallas, but what truly made them love him in this series was not just the fame he already carried with him. As Frank Lambert, Patrick brought a presence that felt grounded and easy to trust, the kind of man who could walk into a room and somehow make the whole house feel calmer. He did not need to play the part too big, and he did not have to force any charm, yet viewers still believed he was the kind of man who could hold a blended family together through all its chaos. Patrick once said he came to sitcoms at exactly the point when he was ready for comedy, and later even called Step by Step one of the best jobs of his life. Maybe that is why the fondest memory people still have of him is that image of a warm, steady, dependable man, carrying a very specific kind of mature masculinity that American television loved at the time. But the deepest pain in Patrick Duffy's story was never on screen. It was hidden in the devastating price behind his calm exterior. At the height of his Dallas fame, his parents were shot and killed during a robbery at the family's tavern in Montana in 1986. What makes the story so haunting is that Patrick did not respond the way Hollywood usually tells these tragedies. He did not turn his grief into a public breakdown, and he did not let tragedy become part of the image he sold to the world. Instead, he kept living in silence, as if he had locked away the biggest fracture of his life in a place no camera could ever reach. He once said that his Buddhist faith helped him feel that he had not been completely separated from his parents, but somehow that very calmness made the tragedy feel even heavier. Because sometimes the saddest thing is not watching someone collapse in front of the world. It is seeing them remain standing, still speaking gently, still appearing normal, while somewhere inside them, a part of life has been damaged beyond repair. The public often admires men who seem good at enduring pain, as if silence were strength and restraint were something noble. But very few people ever stop to ask how much pain Patrick had to bury underneath in order to keep that sense of peace on the surface. In the years that followed, Patrick Duffy's life slowly moved further and further away from the warm sitcom father audiences once knew. His wife, Carlin Rosser, the partner he had shared his life with since 1974, passed away in 2017 after more than 40 years together. Patrick once said that there were times he still felt like a married man, a line that was both gentle and heartbreaking, because some marriages may end in death, but the feelings inside them never really leave. Then, in 2020, he entered a new relationship with Linda Pearl. Seen from a distance, it might sound like nothing more than a late-in-life romance. But looked at more closely, loving again does not mean forgetting the past. Sometimes it is simply the way a person learns how to keep living after loss. The public likes to see old icons grow older inside the safety of nostalgia, but people are often less comfortable with the idea that they can still feel lonely, still need love, and still want to begin again like anyone else. Even in his work, Patrick never completely let writers shape him into a perfect TV father without question. At one point, he pushed back against the direction Step by Step wanted to take because he felt it sent an irresponsible message about family. That small detail says a lot. Behind the kind, easygoing image was a man who thought seriously about the values television was passing on to its audience. Number 2. Suzanne Summers, Beauty, Fame, and Final Battles. By the time Suzanne Summers came to Step by Step, she was no longer just a sitcom actress. She was already a piece of pop culture history from Three's Company, the face of glowing blonde beauty, and the kind of star who could walk into a frame and instantly bring an entire aura of old-school glamour with her. As Carol Foster Lambert, she was no longer the naive girl audiences once remembered. She was now a mother who was still glamorous, still sharp, and still knew how to make family television feel more polished simply by being there. That is why people remember her not just for her looks, but for the sense that she always knew how to turn aging into a new performance. The very beauty that once lifted her up was also what forced her to fight for most of her life, so time and the entertainment industry would not swallow her whole. She understood that this business could worship a woman when she was young, beautiful, and still selling a dream, but could turn cold the moment that same woman asked for more, grew older, or wanted control over her own body and image. When Suzanne spoke up about money and her place on Three's Company, she was nearly pushed out of the game. But she refused to disappear. Instead, she came back in a louder, bigger way, with The Thigh Master, best-selling books, a wellness empire, and the image of a woman determined not to age according to the script the public wanted to hand her. And as the years went on, Suzanne lived more and more like someone who refused to grow old on anyone else's terms. When breast cancer entered her life in 2000 and later returned before her death in 2023, the battle was no longer just about illness. It also became a battle against the very idea of how a famous woman is supposed to age gracefully. She rejected chemotherapy, supported alternative approaches, and that drew heavy criticism from both the medical world and the public. And maybe that is the most tragic part of Suzanne Summers' story. Society always says women should live in tune with their own bodies, but the moment a famous woman actually does that in her own way, people are quick to turn her into a moral controversy. Number 3. Brandon Call, the heartthrob who disappeared. For many viewers, Brandon Call will almost always be J.T. Lambert, the bright, quick-witted, high-energy son from Step by Step. He had exactly the kind of presence a 90s family sitcom needed. Handsome enough to be a teen crush, mischievous enough to get the laughs, and charming enough to keep audiences watching. Brandon was not just another member of the cast. He was the kind of young face people assumed would grow up with Hollywood, moving naturally from child actor to full-fledged adult star. But the tragic irony is that his peak now feels like a promise life never intended to keep. Step by Step was not only the brightest chapter of Brandon Call's career, it was also, in many ways, the last clear image the public ever held of him in the spotlight. In 1996, while Step by Step was still on the air, Brandon was caught in a drive-by shooting after a chase on the road and was shot in both arms. He survived, but some events do not have to take a life to take away an older version of the person who lived it. Christine Lakin later said openly that something like that can change a person deeply, and she felt Brandon simply lost any interest he once had in the spotlight. Society loves keeping teen stars frozen inside a beautiful memory, but it rarely stops to ask whether someone who came that close to death still owes anything to fame at all. Today, Brandon Call is 49 years old, born on November 17, 1976, and the image he presents now feels almost completely opposite from the golden boy audiences once remembered. His most notable rare reappearance came at the cast reunion in 2024, where he said only briefly that he had moved into investing and business. It gave the impression that Brandon did not come back to reclaim his old fame. He showed up more like someone who had lived far enough beyond it that he no longer needed it. And maybe that is the saddest part of Brandon Call's story. He did not disappear because the audience stopped remembering him, but because some fractures run deep enough to make a person no longer want to belong to the world that once adored him so much. Number 4. Stacey Keenan, from sitcom star to prosecutor. For many viewers, Stacey Keenan will always be Dana Foster, the smart, sharp-tongued, slightly prickly daughter on Step by Step. She was never the loudest character in the room or the one constantly fighting for attention, but she was the kind of face people remembered for a long time. There was something very distinctive about Dana, as if she always seemed just a little more grounded than the chaos of the family around her. At the time, Stacy fit exactly the kind of image American television loved in the 90s. Pretty, quick-witted, full of personality, and familiar enough to become part of an entire generation's memory. But what matters even more is that her life afterward did not go in the direction the public once imagined. Stacy did not quietly fade out of Hollywood, and she did not spiral into some dramatic downfall either. She simply stepped away from that world with a very deliberate decision. Later, she studied at UCLA, earned a law degree, and became both a prosecutor and a law professor. That shift was not just surprising. It almost completely erased the line between the sitcom girl audiences once knew and the woman she became. Now, at 50, Stacy is no longer living like a former star trying to hold on to old fame. She lives under the name Anastasia Sigorsky and works in the legal world, a place that demands a level of seriousness, discipline, and strength far removed from the glow of television. Stacy was not someone Hollywood left behind. She was the one who chose to leave first, and in doing so, became a version of herself that the spotlight from those years could no longer define. Number 5. Angela Watson. Fame, loss, and quiet strength. What hurts more than watching a teen star quietly fade from the spotlight? Maybe it is the moment they realize that the brightest years of their youth once seemed to promise an entire future, only to leave almost nothing intact in the end. In the memories of many viewers, Angela Watson will always be Karen Foster, the beautiful, slightly spoiled, slightly sharp-edged daughter on Step by Step, but magnetic enough to become one of the show's most unforgettable faces. Angela had exactly the kind of appeal a 90s family sitcom needed. Striking, vibrant, and charming enough to make people believe she was going to go very far once she grew up in front of the camera. Years later, Angela revealed that during her time on Step by Step, she believed she was setting aside around $2 million for her future. But when she became an adult, she discovered that most of that money was nearly gone because it had been mismanaged. The pain there was not just about losing money. It was the feeling of growing up under the spotlight, working from such a young age, and then one day realizing that the reward for your entire childhood had never really been protected for you at all. That experience later led Angela to help build CAST, an organization meant to help child actors better understand money and protect their own futures. Now 50 years old, Angela Watson's life has opened into a very different chapter. In 2024, she gave birth to her first son at 48, but the baby was born with a serious congenital heart defect and has had to go through an incredibly difficult medical journey. So if Angela once represented the bright, carefree sparkle of a family sitcom, today she reflects a much quieter kind of strength. She is no longer just the girl people remember for her glow and her fame, but a woman who has lived through loss, disappointment, and the heavy worries of real life, and still found the strength to keep loving and keep standing. Number 6. Christine Lakin. Growing up beyond childhood fame. Is the greatest tragedy for a child star always the fall? With Christine Lakin, what feels more memorable is that she never fell in the way people might have expected. Instead, she quietly grew beyond the very memory that once defined her. On Step by Step, Christine was Al Lambert, the sharp, tomboyish daughter with grit, charm, and non-stop energy, the kind of character audiences remembered almost instantly. She had that playful spark that felt so perfectly at home on 90s American television, sweet, stubborn, and just different enough to stand apart from everyone else. It was the kind of role that made people assume Christine would always belong to the world of sitcoms. But the years that followed told a different story. Christine did not disappear, and she was not swallowed up by scandal or by the feeling of becoming yesterday's news, the way so many former child stars were. She kept working, but in a way that felt more grown-up and less tied to old fame, acting, voice work, and eventually stepping behind the camera as a director. By 2025 and 2026, she was still showing up in podcasts and nostalgic conversations about step by step. But the woman people see now is not someone clinging to childhood fame. She is someone who turned that memory into a foundation and kept building from it. And maybe that is what makes Christine Lakin's story so interesting. She did not let child stardom consume her. She grew up just outside of it. Number 7. Christopher Castile, the nerd who became a teacher. Not every child star disappears in scandal. Some leave the spotlight quietly, and somehow that quiet exit makes their story even sadder. Christopher Castile is one of those cases. On Step by Step, he played Mark Foster, the smart, awkward, slightly withdrawn kid, the kind of character who did not need to demand attention to stay in people's minds. There was something very specific about Christopher's presence, a mix of innocence and sincerity that made him feel like a familiar part of an entire generation's television memories. Back then, it was easy to assume that Boy would just keep growing up in front of the camera. But life did not take him in that direction. Christopher stepped away from acting while he was still very young, went back to school, and gradually moved into a completely different life. After the ups and downs of adulthood and the economy, he did not become the grown-up star many people once imagined. He became a high school teacher instead. Now, at 45, Christopher teaches economics and history, living in a world far removed from Hollywood. What makes his story so touching is that he did not disappear because he failed, and not because audiences turned their backs on him. He simply moved into such an ordinary life that the version of him people once loved seems to have been left behind forever. And sometimes, that is the quietest sadness of all for a former child star. Not losing everything, but living long enough to become someone completely different from the memory the world still holds on to. Number 8. Josh Byrne, the child star who left Hollywood. Josh Byrne left Hollywood while he was still very young, and maybe that is exactly what gives his story such a strange kind of sadness. On Step by Step, Josh played Brendan Lambert, the quick, innocent youngest son who brought exactly the kind of light, easy energy a 90s family sitcom always needed. He was never the kind of character who completely dominated the screen, but he became a very natural part of the show's memory, the kind of face audiences can still suddenly remember years later with a soft sense of nostalgia. Back then, no one would have guessed that little Boy would walk away from the entertainment world so quickly. But Josh did not grow up along the usual path people expect from a child star. He stepped away from acting at a very young age and gradually moved into a completely different life, one where the spotlight was no longer at the center. The interests that first took root during his years on set, things like comic books, history, martial arts, and Renaissance fairs, eventually became a natural part of the adult he would grow into. Today, Josh is 42 and works at Sideshow Collectibles, living in a creative world that feels completely different from Hollywood. What makes his story so moving is that Josh did not disappear because he failed. He simply drifted so far away that the little boy once seen on television now feels like a completely different person. And sometimes, it is exactly that kind of quiet change that makes the passage of time feel most haunting. If Step by Step was part of your childhood too, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for more stories about the stars. Time changed the most.